Welcome to the Misfit One Lifestyles with Elizabeth Colin. She will awaken and connect with your Misfit One. Are you tired of the ups and downs in your life? Are you ready to live a healthy lifestyle once and for all? We are talking about all aspects of your life. Being fit is not just physical, it's also your mind and soul. Learn how to take steps in your life to move towards your goals. Elizabeth's goal is for everyone listening to the sound of her voice to get fit. Let's get focused, let's get intentional, and let's transform. Now here's your host, Elizabeth Colin.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Misfit One Lifestyles with your girl, Elizabeth Colin, also known as Misfit One. And guys, the buzzword game is still in play. So for the first 5 people who can tell us how many times we say the buzzword farmers, right? Then you get an amazing prize. But first, make sure you follow me. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and on Facebook. Elizabeth Colin, Health Strategist, so you can get this prize. All right, but now, our guest is so amazing. I am so excited to be speaking to him because he's really going to dive in. We're going to talk about meaningful. I can't even speak today. That's how excited I am. Work. Guys, welcome Sean Askinosi. How are you today?
I am great. Thanks for having me.
I am so happy you are here. Wait, first of all, is the buzzword farmers or farm?
Farmers, yeah.
Farmers. Yes, you guys heard it right. Farmers. So starting now, go. Anyway, talk to us. Tell me, Sean, first of all, tell the people who you are, because just because I know you don't mean they do. So can you tell them a little bit about who you are?
Sure. Well, right now I'm a small batch bean to bar chocolate maker in the Midwest in Springfield, Missouri, and we're celebrating our 15th year in business.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we're a very small company. We only have 22 full-time employees. My daughter is a part owner. She works with me. She's our chief marketing officer. She started working with me when she was 16. And in fact, she's the co-author in the book that you mentioned with me, Meaningful Work. And, before I started this business, I was a criminal defense lawyer for 20 years, and I specialized in the defense of murder cases and really serious felonies. And I loved it. And then, I'm sure many of your listeners can relate to this, but I stopped loving it. I loved it. It was my passion. It was my calling. And then it wasn't. So it was time for something new. And so then I quit that, and now I make chocolate.
And your business is Askinosi Chocolates, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now, you have such an interesting story because, like you said, you were an attorney, a criminal, like heavy stuff, and now you're making chocolate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So can you talk to me about that? Like, how did you make that change? I hear what you said about when we feel as though we're living in our passion and we love it, and then we don't love it anymore. A lot of times people get caught up in that and kind of get afraid, right? So can you tell us your story and how you made that switch?
What happened to me is I felt really like I was doing the right thing at the right time. And I felt that way for years. And one of the tests that we all have heard about, whether or not we kind of can be in that place is, does the work feel like work, or is it something we just love and we find that we do it when we have free time? And that's the way it was for me. My dad was a criminal defense lawyer. So I grew up with that. He died when I was young. And so that probably propelled me even further, to kind of want to be like him, to follow in his footsteps. And so I loved it. And then the scary part came when I started, it was at the beginning of the end of a murder case
Mhm.
for me. And so I just kind of had this experience where everything kind of shifted for me. And I started kind of becoming more aware of
Right.
my body, mind, and soul. And my body was telling me, okay, you're done with this. And I just didn't have anything else to do. That was the problem. I didn't take any business classes. I took everything to prepare for law school. I didn't know how to make anything. I didn't have any hobbies. I literally was just a blank slate. So I started baking. No, I started grilling actually. I got a big green egg, started cooking outdoors.
Okay.
Then I bought another big green egg because I'm obsessive. And then, which I still am. And then I started baking, and then from baking to chocolate desserts. And then I started traveling around the world, learning how farmers influence the flavor of cocoa beans by how they harvest. And so that's what I've really done. In fact, I made my first origin trip in 2.5 years just last month. I went to Tanzania. And it was my 45th origin trip. I've been visiting farmers every year since I started this business.
No, I'm glad that you are talking about farmers because my dad is a farmer, and people don't realize the importance of them.
No.
Um, and I love talking about it because it's so many things that they grow. Like I
Right.
don't know about farmers with the cocoa bean and all that stuff. So can you give us a little background on what they specialize in?
These farmers are found primarily on the equator band around the world, so 20 degrees north and south of the equator. So, for example, one of the places where I travel to meet with farmers would be Ecuador. And there's two places in Ecuador, one in Guayaquil and one in the south in the Amazon. So these are, tropical, hot, remote, often not at high elevations because it's too cool. And then the other place I go is Tanzania, and then the other place is the Philippines. And
Wow.
we the farmers grow this commodity. I mean, it's kind of treated as a commodity. It's a pod. It grows on a tree about 20 feet tall. They usually have 2 harvests a year, and inside this pod is kind of a very sweet, juicy pulp, and then the pulp surrounds the seeds, which are beans. They're cocoa beans.
Wow.
They are fermented and dried by the farmers, and then they are put into burlap bags after this long post-harvest process, and then we ship them out. And we ship them to we ship the
Fascinating.
cocoa beans to our factory in container ships.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is really cool. And what's crazy is because, you know, I wouldn't have never known that. Like I wouldn't have never ever known where cocoa beans come from, right? And I look like farmers are like a sign of life, right? We all are in some part or some way a farmer of our life. Does that make sense to
Mm-hmm.
you?
It absolutely does. It makes sense to me in a lot of, I mean, first of all, I love that metaphor. I've never heard it put quite like that. And I like that. I'm going to spend some time thinking about that. And I also really liked hearing that your father is a farmer. And did you by chance grow up on a farm or have spent a lot of time on the farm or?
Still there. My
Okay.
family, yeah, I was
Yeah.
born and raised on a
Okay.
farm. I was
Okay.
raised on my dad's farm, and my parents, my mom's side was the Indian reservation. So we everywhere was farm. That's all I know. My husband called me his little hippie
Mhm.
because I still have my stuff here. I
Mhm.
talk to my plants and
Mhm.
but like I said, people don't get it. It takes patience. It takes understanding. Like they say, dumb farmers is BS. I'm saying that
Right.
right now because
Right.
they have to know how to read the earth,
Yes.
how to the drought, how much water, the time. It is so crazy the amount of work as a matter of fact, it's so hard that most generations don't want to do it again. Like we're like, nope,
No. It's dying in America.
it
And
is.
and it's and smaller farms are dying around the world, but the farmers that I work with are small. They have only maybe let's say 10 acres ish, but they can yield a lot off of those 10 acres.
Right.
And we pay them a lot and we profit share with them. We open our books to them. We translate. In fact, when I went to Tanzania last month, our books were in Swahili, and that's the way we've always done it. So they can
Wow.
understand how we calculate their profit share. And so, but the reason I spend a lot of time with farmers, and I spend a lot of time, except for, this COVID thing. I mean, I would travel every year. And so the reason for me that there's such a strong connection with farmers and why I like your metaphor, and it's interesting to hear of your background, is because my grandparents were farmers in the Midwest.
Mhm.
And um and it's they were not, they were not highly educated people, and they didn't have a whole lot of land. I mean, they weren't wealthy, but it was like 30 minutes from my house. And after my dad died, especially, I spent a lot of time on that farm. And my grandparents lived on that same farm until they both went to a assisted living. So, 65 years. They were married for 65 years.
Wow.
They went to the same church all those years.
Yeah.
They were very kind, sweet people who helped their neighbors. Their neighbors helped them.
Hmm.
And but when I was there, which was a lot, especially in my teen years, when it came to chores, I was kind of a jerk about things. So like I didn't really want to bale hay. I
Right.
didn't want to break ice in the ponds. I didn't want to hoe the garden. I didn't want to, and I wasn't very nice
Sean,
about it.
I think that's so funny. You had a choice. Look at that. We
Yeah,
had no
exactly.
choice. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah, you want to eat,
yeah,
you do.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's the way it should have been. But so, and I remember thinking, especially in college, well, I'm going to get as far away from that farm as I possibly can. And then I went to school in Tokyo, but
That's pretty far.
it is pretty far. But interestingly, right now, like from where I'm speaking to you and where I live 3 minutes from my grandparents' old farm. I'm in the
Yeah.
same zip code. I have land, that's very close to where their land was. And the reason that I have the relationship with farmers that I do is because of my grandparents. They are the genesis of my calling and my vocation to work with farmers directly. And so I, in fact, it's so deep that when I'm with farmers in wherever country, I actually feel like not only am I honoring my grandparents' legacy, but I'm actually with them. They both died, years ago. Um, but and it really for me is this message of simplicity, of kindness, of they weren't loud, um, and just and really that's why I think your metaphor is really apt, because the idea that we're the farmers of our own lives, it doesn't need to be as complicated as we make it.
Thank
So
you.
yeah.
Absolutely. It is not as complicated as we need. If we stick to the bare minimum, the basis that, we went, we'll be fine,
Yeah, right.
but we are overthinkers in America. It's all about, more, more, more.
Yes, yes,
And instead of substance, right?
right.
Instead of having meaningful um, work or having a purpose or doing things with intention, and I think that's the great thing about learning and I love about living on a farm,
Hmm.
because I learned how to be quiet, how to have peace, how to not, I don't need to be entertained.
Hmm.
I can watch the clouds go by. As a matter of fact,
Hmm.
I do. That's a game in itself.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a dragon.
Hmm.
That's a princess. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's one of the most thing I'm so grateful for. My father just came out for my 50th birthday party, and he was the belle of the ball because he's just so at peace. he's just a walking, you just want to hug him and
Hmm.
hold him. And he's strong when he has to be, and he's kind when he needs to
Wow.
be, and he's gentle, and
Hmm.
they don't really make him like that anymore.
I know. I know. I know. That's why we have a very special duty, to we have a special duty to bring the thread and threads of that legacy into our lives and to the lives of the people that we're around.
And we
That's
can
a yeah,
touch. That's what's
right.
great about you coming on today, because my whole platform is about living fit. And when I say fit, I mean focus, intentional, and transforming.
Hmm.
And I love your story of going from this high powered, successful criminal defense lawyer and going to a chocolate maker is so profound on so many levels. Because one, I love where you say I didn't have anything else to do. I didn't have any skills, which is great for people to know. That you guys don't think about, I have to be over educated in this thing, or I have to have that, go for what you feel passionate about. And can you really tell us, how did you land on chocolate?
The so when my body, I kind of started having little mini panic attacks in the courtroom. I didn't even know what a panic attack was. I didn't know the name. I just knew my chest was kind of hurting and it wasn't a heart attack. But so I started listening to my body and trying to sort of just be aware of it, just awareness, really, which I'm sure would fit within your focus,
Yes.
intention, transformation. And it's sort of elementary, just be aware of your body, your soul, and just another word for it is mindfulness, but I like awareness.
Right.
But anyway,
Wait, and,
so
and and just so you say
yeah,
that, I love that is a great tip, you guys. Write it down. Be aware. And in order to be aware, you have to be quiet sometimes to listen.
absolutely. Absolutely. No, and that's so for me, um, I I kind of made a little prayer that was almost like a mantra because I didn't just say it once a day. And it was, Dear God, please give me something else to do. Very simple, just give me something else to do. And I felt like I was fortunate. Look, I mean, I had some savings from my work and, we put all of the savings in this little business. And it was a struggle initially for my wife. It was a struggle for our marriage. We've been married 35 years now. And
Mm.
we've made it through that little challenge. Um, and so, but to your question of how I landed on it, there were a lot of opportunities that I looked at, buying a franchise or starting something, or I didn't know what. Then I kind of narrowed it down to food, and and I write about this in my book, but I spent 5 years volunteering at one of the local hospitals in their palliative care department. So I would work on Fridays when I was in town, just as a volunteer, visiting palliative care patients. Palliative care basically means hospice in the hospital. So people who are dying. And I'm not going to say I wasn't a chaplain. That's not what I did. I was just a volunteer. I would go and talk to people who often didn't have any family or friends or anybody, but they were all dying in some stage of dying. And so while I was just pushing, trying to find the next thing, I was researching and reading and talking to people and doing the typical lawyer stuff, just trying to uncover every answer, every stone uncovered. Well, when I was volunteering, I would usually conclude my visits by asking the people if they'd like me to say a prayer for them. And they almost always said yes. And I would ask them what they wanted me to pray for, as opposed to me just making it up. And so I listened to them and then I prayed their words back to them. And there was something that happened in those moments. Those moments measured in seconds were really, now that I look back on it, they were really, really long moments, because it's one of the first times that I actually didn't think about myself. And so there's this weird
Wow.
paradox, and Gandhi talks about this. He said, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. And
Absolutely.
so that's how it happened. And so chocolate just kind of, it just, I didn't have some lifelong love of chocolate. I didn't always eat chocolate. It just kind of came to me.
Well, I
That's the
thought you
best
was
I
going
can
to
say.
say that's what people asked for, right? What would you like? Chocolate. I'm
Yeah.
praying for chocolate, you know?
Yeah, no, yeah, that would be a great story. That would be great. I love it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but it was true, I talk about this also when I first moved to Charlotte from California. I left everything. I knew no one here. I was completely lost, and I didn't have my studio anymore. I didn't have anything. And what was crazy about it is when you don't have anything to focus on, you tend to focus on yourself. And then I'm down and depressed, and like you praying, help me, God. What am I supposed to do? This is
Mhm.
right. And then it hit me, serve others,
Yep.
serve others. So
Yeah.
I went and started doing feeding the homeless and doing those things. And it really did shake you up,
Mhm.
because that's the number one thing I tell people all the time. If they're feeling depressed and down and like really on themselves, serve others,
Yes, that's great advice. That's
you
so,
know?
I mean, it's also simple. You don't have to write a check. You don't have to join anything. You can just go do it.
Just go do it. Yeah, I
Mhm.
love that. Now, let me ask you this. How can people um, connect with you?
Well, the best way is our website is my last name.com. It's askenosi.com. Or we're on social media. My company is. I also have an email address that it's hello@seanaskenosi.com, and people can catch me there. I have a blog that I write on usually once a year at seanaskenosi.com. And so that's the best way, but people
Right,
can find
right.
us pretty easily.
Yes. When we talk about your story, I love it because it's life changing, right?
Mhm.
And the people who listen to my podcast are ever growing, which I love that, right? I try to help everybody be the best that they can be.
Mhm.
So, can you give us a couple of tips on how to be more um, free, more aware?
Yeah. I I think I think that I think this idea of awareness is one of the things one of the things I'm very optimistic about is, we work with a lot of young people, and we didn't talk about it, but we have something in my company called Chocolate University. It's actually a separate public charity, the Chocolate University Foundation. And we take local young people to Tanzania every other year to meet with farmers, have a transformative experience. And, you know, I, I'm so optimistic about young people right now. And I'm seeing a sort of shift over the last 10 years. And there's this real, in my view, anecdotally, an increase in self awareness among young people. And I'm really, really enthused about that. I'm optimistic and excited about it. And, but I think often this idea of awareness, and I mean specifically self awareness, is frightening. And it's one of the things that you mentioned that is associated with this place is fear. And we are in the age of distraction. It's all around us. It's at our fingertips. It's always available. And the age of distraction is the thing that we think is the balm for our fear, but it just makes it worse. And so if the first step, in my view, is to just even, and this is very simple, but it can also be hard, and that is just be aware. Just, am I aware of what's happening now? Am I aware of my voice speaking? Who is talking? Who is thinking these thoughts? If I'm thinking, oh, wow, I'm really glad to be here. I'm glad to be talking. And, oh, don't I sound cool? Wasn't that a good sentence? Well, who thought that? Who was it? Me? And so to me, this question of self-awareness, and if we were going to boil all of it down, everything that we've talked about, I think this notion of self-awareness is the most important thing that we could say in the time that we talk together. And the reason is because I believe it is at the root of everything. Because all of the religions, I don't care what religion, all of the major religions of the world say, much like Christianity, which is, who am I? Who am I? Thomas Merton, one of my heroes, would say it's the true self. Or in the Eastern traditions, they would say the seat of self, or the essential being, or ground of being. And so we can put it into Hindu, we can put it into Islam, we can put it into Christianity, we can put it in Buddhism. And the thread of self-awareness of who am I that's creation right there. It's creation happening all the time. And so if we can even just say, oh, I'm afraid to be, as you said, silent. I'm afraid to just be silent for a few minutes with my thoughts because my thoughts scare me. I'm frightened. That's the first step. It's being aware of the fear, just being aware of the fear. Yeah. But eventually when we look not outwardly for some object or experience or image or person, but if we can turn around and look inside ourselves, we will find, this is my faith tradition, we will find the image of God. We will find our soul. Yes. This is it. It's impenetrable. It is unharmed. It is eternal. It is beautiful. It is love. And if we can have some awareness just around that, then, well, that's how we change ourselves, how we transform, and how ultimately how the world is changed.
Yes, one person at a time. That really is. It's one soul at a time.
Starting with me. Mine.
Starting with the man in the mirror. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Sean, this has been so great. I really appreciate this. Listen, I want to get a copy of your book, Meaningful Work, A Quest to Do Great Business, Find Your Calling and Feed Your Soul. Again, how can we get it?
It's on Amazon, and it was published by Penguin Random House, so it's pretty available. And then we sell it on our website, but I think we sell it for more than Amazon does, so don't buy it there. I think maybe they're signed copies, but that's not worth very much. And so, but that's the way. Yeah. And then of course the chocolate we have a zip code locator on our website, so people can go to that and see if there's a store near them that carries it too, but we ship it all over the country.
Perfect. Did you say the website for the chocolate?
Askinosi.com. That's how people can find our chocolate and more about us and our work.
Appreciate you. I appreciate you. Before I wrap it up though, I always ask people, how do you take care of yourself? What does your self-care look like, Sean?
Well, over the last 2.5 years, I started with weekly therapy online, and that's one way to take care of myself. You could call it coaching or whatever, but it's therapy for me. And then I went to 2 weeks and now once a month. And then right now I'm in the midst of doing a somatic work called EMDR. And EMDR is for people who have experienced trauma. A lot of us have. Right. Mine surrounded my dad's death, as I mentioned earlier. And so to me, that's self-care. Self-care, I'm able to talk with someone. I'm able to be myself with someone, learn and understand where I am, and have someone who will help me through the darkness. these are dark times for many of us, and we should honor that. And someone who will help me be patient and will help me not to panic through the
Wow.
darkness. That's
Wow.
that's one of the ways that I'm taking care of myself.
I mean, that's like fundamental, right? And so many people don't do that. So I applaud you and I thank you for sharing all that you shared to us today because again, this is something that um, a farmer would appreciate, right?
Indeed. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
All right, you guys, until next week, live fit. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Misfit One Lifestyles. Listen, when you are fed up and sick and tired of living this stifled, overwhelmed, and overstressed life, and you're ready to live the fullest, richest, and healthiest life by gaining more confidence, more energy, and more clarity, living in your best self, you know what to do, right? Go ahead, go to my website, misfit1.com. Sign up for our online courses, Creating Healthy Habit, so that you too can live fit, focus, move with intention, and transform your life.